I want to talk about the three biggest mistakes that new coders make because I work with a lot of people that are early in their career trying to learn how to code and switch careers. Most people learn to code because they want to switch careers, money, prestige, whatever, right? I'm not here to judge. Well, maybe a little bit. If you're only switching for the money and prestige, then this is probably not a great career to join because you might have a little bit of one or a little bit of the other, but it's unlikely you'll have a lot of both, right? But if you really like coding, I don't want to discourage you. I think it's a wonderful career. I do it. I find a lot of joy in it, and I continue to like fall in love with coding. But anyway, before I get all sappy and corny, let me jump into the mistakes that I see people make, specifically career changers. If you're in college, you're probably making some of these mistakes too. But certainly if you're a career changer and you're outside of college age, you're an adult trying to learn to code because you want to switch careers, here are the pitfalls that I wish more people would avoid, many of which I've fallen into myself. So over the years, I've spoken to, I don't know, maybe 1,000 developers one-on-one at least 1,000 people by now I've spoken to one-on-one in short 15-minute conversations that I've done as part of a sales tool to get into my program, parsity.io/inner circle. Now, obviously, we didn't take all 1,000 of these people, but I do these calls basically out of the love of the game, essentially. Most of these calls don't end up in sales. I'm not very good at sales, if I'm being completely honest with you. Anyway, it's given me a very good idea of what's going on in the market, what people are doing, what's working, what's not. And I just apply that to my own life and see the same mistakes that I've made. And after talking with so many people from around the world, literally all around the world, I see a lot of the same issues and themes come up. So here are the three biggest mistakes I see people make. We have a program called Dev 30. Dev 30 is teaching people the basics of JavaScript. And when they come into the program, I hear a lot of the same complaints. How do I memorize the syntax? How do I memorize JavaScript? How do I memorize functions or when to write this thing? They get really conceptual, right? Or maybe they learn a language like Python or something like that, which I honestly don't think is a great idea to start off with. The reason why I tend to tell people start with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript is because you can see something on the screen. When you get really conceptual and you're thinking about like how memory works or memory pointers or just like functions and what are they and even how they work at a fundamental level, it doesn't just come intuitively, right? There's nothing you can see on the screen generally to get some feedback. So instead of worrying about memorizing functions or these random pieces of concepts, this isn't like school where you just had to learn some information, regurgitate it, and then somebody would magically give you money or, pass you on to the next grade. That won't really matter as a software engineer. People want to see how well you can build stuff. So if you're starting too conceptual too early, you're going to really do yourself a disservice, in my opinion. I think you should start off with the really, real basic stuff. HTML and CSS. Get some stuff on a screen you can look at, and then learn how to make it interactive by working with those elements. So, for example, a really good exercise would be to make a very basic web page that has a button. And when a user clicks that button, it makes something on the web page happen. Like anything, like just whatever you can think of, doesn't really matter. Like, who cares? Just make it do something. This is exactly how I learned JavaScript, by the way. I have books behind me on my bookcase here. Most of them I haven't even read that concern programming because most of them were too conceptual for me to really grasp at the time. Now I can get a lot of value out of books by Kyle Simpson or Martin Fowler, or just reading articles that tell me about like scope and memory management and closure and things like that. Now they make a lot more sense, but only after I got a practical usage with those things. So first get practical, then get conceptual. Which leads me to number two. People love Leet Code and Hacker Rank. What is this thing in Code Wars? What is this obsession with using Hacker Rank, Leet Code, and Code Wars? I mean, I get it, like interviews are a thing, right? You want to pass interviews. I get it. I totally get it. I've gone on many rants about interviews. I interview all the time, by the way. So I practice what I preach. I do mock interviews all the time. In fact, I'm going to do one right after this show is over because I see the value in doing interviews. But if you're not even getting interviews, if you're just learning, why are you preparing for interviews? I don't prepare for interviews until about a week out from the interview. If it's a really difficult interview, I may prepare for longer. Like for Google, I prepared for 3 months. If I was going to do it again, I might prepare for even longer. If I'm preparing for the startup down the street, I'm probably not preparing much at all. But in general, you don't want to start so far ahead that you don't even have an interview coming up. So you're doing Code Words and HackerRank, which are these fairly conceptual things that make no sense in a practical sense, right? Like, let's learn how to write out the Fibonacci sequence with JavaScript or Python or C sharp, whatever. And I'm like, why? Why would you want to learn this and bash your head against a wall? First of all, it discourages you because now you're trying to learn something that you don't really understand and you're trying to apply memorization techniques to this kind of thing. So steer clear of that kind of thing in the beginning, I think. I've really just never seen somebody go into Code Wars or HackerRank and have a good experience and say, oh man, I'm super glad I learned that early on. What I see it do is discourage people and take them further away from the path that they really want to be on, which is to become a professional software developer. As a professional software developer, you're not writing functions to figure out the Fibonacci sequence. You're coding and deploying complex software, usually to the cloud, and then you're testing it, making sure there aren't too many bugs, making more tests, finding bugs, updating the software, and then figuring out how to get whatever's in the product manager's mind and your CEO's head and turn that into code that they can make money with. Remember that. That's the most important thing about your career. You take ideas from people's heads, turn it into a product that makes money. This is why software developers tend to be paid exorbitant amounts of money at companies like Google and all the other places. Even other startups, they tend to pay the developers a lot. They're usually the biggest cost of doing business because they tend to make the money, because they actually implement the ideas that people have in their heads, which is pretty cool. This leads me to number 3. If you're not starting off by building, you're doing it wrong. This used to be on the Parsity.io website. We say if you're not starting off building, you're already doing it wrong. I stand by that. If you're not building stuff from the beginning, you're probably going about this the wrong way, because your interview, your career, everything you do is going to be based on what have you built. It's the reason why people have portfolios or GitHubs or things that say, here, I can build this thing. So if you're not building things to start off with, you're going about it the wrong way. And by going about it the wrong way, it means you're probably on HackerRank or LeetCode, or you're just like doing these random assignments that you find online that don't really ladder up to build something that people can use. So if you make something useful that you want to use, or your family, friends, partner, church, community, whatever, people find some value in, that's a really good way to start. But if you're just building random little toy functions and things like that, that may teach you some conceptual stuff, which is helpful. There's nothing wrong with learning really anything. I mean, it's all powerful stuff to know. But is it going to help you in your long-term goal or your short-term goal, which is to get hired? Almost certainly not. Also, it's not going to teach you about the software development lifecycle. This is a buzzword, SDLC, software development lifecycle, that you'll often hear tossed around in software organizations, and it usually comes up in your interview. Tell me about the SDLC. Tell me about the software development lifecycle. Well, if all you've done is go on LeetCode and HackerRank and build random little toy apps, then you don't really know about the software development lifecycle because you don't have anything to talk about. So make it your goal to deploy something to the cloud, monitor it, see what happens, and then make sure you have tests and other things that make it safe, secure, and scalable. 3 S's: safe, secure, scalable. I should really phrase that or write that down. I think I stole that from somebody else, but he won't be around to catch me. But if you know who said that, then hey, I'll tag him somewhere. Okay, these are all fairly simple things to fix. I mean, build stuff. Maybe don't go on LeetCode. Maybe don't just go in circles trying to learn everything under the sun and stick to a few primary coding languages, and then you'll be fine, right? But this last one, I said there were 3, but there's really like 3.5, and this half is a big one. It's the big kahuna. Perhaps the biggest mistake that career changers make is not doing local market research. And I don't just mean seeing what tech is like hot in your particular market. I mean doing like any research at all about like what is a hireable set of skills to have. It's like you blindly go into coding, and I can give you a tech stack that I think is going to make you hireable based on my experience as a person living in the Bay Area in California. But that same tech stack and that same approach might not work for somebody in Australia or Europe or in Kansas or New York. It could, but it also could not. So learning a single tech stack is not a guarantee for a job. So if you're looking for a boot camp that teaches a single tech stack and you want to be a generalist software engineer, I don't think that's the right move either. Like if you're just thinking, oh, C# is going to get me the job, or oh, JavaScript's going to get me the job. No, that's not how it works. In your career, you're likely going to go through at least a few languages. I've gone through JavaScript, TypeScript, C#, Ruby, a little bit of Scala, a little bit of Python here and there. But just to say that you're going to switch languages at some point in your career, or you're going to be using at least an additional one wherever you go, most likely. And you're going to switch jobs a few times. So looking for a tech stack that's the guarantee, the unlock that's going to get you the job, that's just not rooted in reality. So doing local market research doesn't just mean looking at the tech stack, because I don't think that's the big unlock that's going to get you hired. But I do think that looking at your local market, figuring out which companies are hiring, what do they tend to hire for? Is this more of a back end focused area that you're in? Is this more of a full stack dominated market that you're in? Are there room for front end engineers? For a while now, there hasn't been a lot of room for front end engineers to get hired. It's been almost all full stack developer roles that are open. These are the kind of things you probably want to know. And then you want to experiment a little bit with, what about you? What do you like to do? Do you like front end? Do you like full stack? Do you like back end? If you start as a generalist, you can kind of funnel yourself into a few smaller areas of software. Maybe it's mobile development. Maybe it's web. Maybe it's back end. Maybe it's database administrator. I don't know. There's other things to do than just write code for the web. I ended up being a web developer, a web app developer. I really like it, but I didn't really take time to think, what do I really want to do? And also making connections in your local community. Super important, because learning how to code is useful. But if you want a job, you're going to need to know a lot more than just how to code. Like, how do you sell yourself? What do people in your area that get hired, and what are they doing? Where are they going? Where are they hanging out? You got to kind of go old school, go to meetups if you need to. Go to the physical locations of the places that you might want to work and see if you can even talk to somebody there. Find them on LinkedIn, find them in your community, in not a weird, creepy, stalkery way, but do some due diligence about who you can make connections with currently that might help you out and give you some practical advice about your actual situation in your community, in your part of the world. Because I've talked with people from Nigeria to Egypt to Russia to Ukraine to the UK and everywhere in between. And believe me, the markets aren't so different, but they're definitely not the same. It'll help you understand market trends and the kinds of roles people tend to get hired in the areas which you live, which should inform part of your tech stack. Now, you can't just learn COBOL, for example, and be a hireable web developer. You can't learn Rust and maybe get into mobile app development. These are skills that just aren't related. So there is some amount of research you're going to have to do to say, well, what skills might help me out? Being a generalist is fine. Is there one or two things I might want to add in my particular market that are going to help me out? You know that the tech stack won't completely unlock the job, but it can help you get a small edge over people that might have gone to a boot camp that only taught a certain tech stack. I hope that's helpful. And I've done so many of these calls, and I don't really plan on doing a lot more because they are a bit of a time suck. And I really enjoyed them in speaking with all the people that I have met. But yeah, I don't see myself doing a ton of these in the future. But if you have questions, I'm always happy to answer them. And I'd like to do more videos where I can talk to a lot more people at the same time that may have the same kinds of questions. So leave them in a comment in YouTube, or just email me at brian@parsity.io. And I'll do my best to answer the ones that I feel are representative of the questions that other people are asking as well, or ones that I just think are interesting to answer. So I hope that's helpful. See you around.